Good afternoon, this is Ned Milburn, a guitar builder and repairman in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Third time's the charm, they say. This is actually the fourth time I'm doing this video. I'm having some technical issues with my files on the device I'm using to record this. It got filled up, and it filled up so much that I couldn't delete items, and I was trying to delete the items and they would show as deleted, but then they weren't deleted, so I tried to record a new video and it stopped recording. Anyway, hopefully I'm solved through that. I had some interesting things that I was trying to record, and I missed them all, so I'm going to focus today on maybe 3 things with this instrument, and hopefully I can teach you guys something. If you have any questions on it, or if you have any ideas for other videos, please let me know, because I do have other instruments in the shop and I might be able to show you with an example. So this is what some people would call a vintage instrument. Vintage is a rather, what does it mean? Different things to different people. This instrument has an idiosyncrasy. It has something that we need to deal with as a maintenance issue. And then it's got one thing that's, minor, unfortunate. And that's the first thing that I'm going to point out to you guys. It's a Yamaha guitar. Nice, well-built instrument. I'm guessing mid to late 70s or early 80s. It's kind of like a Gibson 175, but not quite as deep, the body depth. And first thing I'll point out, on any vintage instrument, rule number 1 is do not do anything destructive. If there is any unique hardware on that instrument, do not destroy it. You can change it, sure, but best not to modify the original hardware or accessories in a destructive interface. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at this, you'll notice that the pickups are different. Okay? We have one of the original pickups here for the bridge pickup, and we have a replacement pickup. It's been replaced twice for the bridge pickup. Now, these pickup rings are interesting. Okay? They're not quite exactly like Gibson pickup rings. I'll try and bring it closer so you can see here. If we look, there you go. Look at that one on the bridge pickup. I'm going to try and I have the neck cradle here, and I'm going to use that for the body so I can hold it in position and use a pointer. I'm going to use a pen with a plastic end so that I don't damage the instrument. You can see here we've got the base to the pickup ring, and then the base has a raised portion here. Now that raised portion, if you look at the bridge pickup ring, the raised portion has actually been removed either by filing or cutting or a combination of both. This pickup ring, which is now on the bridge side or on the neck side, that used to be the bridge pickup ring. So someone at one point switched the pickup rings and they removed that taller portion because they decided to put in a replacement pickup, a Gibson style replacement pickup, and they damaged the pickup ring. Now what I would have done is I would have built a wooden pickup ring mount. I could have made it any thickness. I could have installed any pickup, any size into it. I could have put not a humbucker, I could have put a Fender style Strat pickup in it, single coil. I could have done the Gibson style pickup. And you'll see, right, there's the Gibson style pickup is not as long side to side as the original Yamaha pickup, and that's why the whole thing had to be modified. It looks, if you look at it carefully and stare at it, it's kind of ugly. When you're playing the guitar, no big deal, but it's just kind of unfortunate, right, that someone did that with the instrument. It would have been so easy just to remove that pickup ring, set it aside, keep it in its vintage mint form, and make something out of wood as a replacement, I would have made something out of rosewood or ebony. Ebony would have kept it black, right? But ebony's more expensive. So that's number one. Let me repeat. If you have a vintage instrument, do not do anything destructive or irreversible to any of the guitar itself or the hardware on the guitar itself. Set it aside, build something different for it. Then you have no problem. Next thing that's interesting about this guitar. We'll see here, we've got, lo and behold, some of you have probably seen it before. Maybe there's a few watching the video who haven't seen this before. This is a 0 fret. It's called a 0 fret. Now, I can only think of one reason, one potential benefit for having a 0 fret. If you guys think of any other reasons, please write it in the comments because I'd be curious to know your thoughts. So the only reason I can think of having a 0 fret is it means that when you create a nut for the instrument, you don't need to worry about the depth of the nut slots. All you need to worry about is the spacing, the side-to-side spacing of the nut slots. Okay, how much of an advantage is that? Well, what it means is that now the height of the strings, instead of being controlled by the depth of the nut slot, the height of the strings at the first fret and second fret, it's controlled by the 0 fret height. You might think, that makes sense. The frets should all be in alignment, yeah. But actually it doesn't make sense, and here's why. The nut of a guitar, the strings vibrate more freely when they are not fretted compared to when they are fretted. If I fret a note and pluck the string, I can feel the vibration of that string underneath my finger. So this string is actually vibrating kind of like a seesaw, and it's pivoting on that 3rd fret. Slightly, just a bit. So the fact that my finger is here and the pad of my fleshy pad of the fingertip is pressing it down, that is actually providing some dampening or dulling of the vibration on the other side of the seesaw, okay, on the other side of the 3rd fret. Whereas with the nut doesn't have a soft, rubbery, fleshy part to it on the other side of the string. It allows for freer vibration of the string for the open string compared to a fretted note, which means the string vibrating more freely has a larger amplitude, a larger movement, physical movement, and we tend to set the nut slots a little bit higher than the fret plane. And that little bit higher, how much higher than the fret plane do we set it? That depends upon the player's touch. If a person plays with a very light touch with the left hand, they tend to play with a light touch with the right hand, whether it's finger style or whether it's picking style. If they play with a heavy touch with the left hand, or let me reverse, if they play with a heavy touch with the right hand, really heavy strumming, you usually fret harder, and you want the open strings to avoid buzzing because you're actually plucking and making a larger amplitude of the string compared to if you have a light touch, you may be only vibrating the string this much. Heavy touch, you're vibrating it like this. So a heavier touched player, we set the nut slots higher than a light touched player. That's why having a nut is actually more advantageous than having a 0 fret. Yes, it requires more work to set up, but it gives you the customizability depending upon the player. Now, what if your nut slots are cut and set for someone who has a very light touch? Well, easy. You just pull the nut out, put a slight shim underneath it, and I tend to use wood shims. Sometimes I will use bone shims, but tend to use wood. And then you put the nut back in. If you have to, you trim the nut slots down a little tiny touch to the right level, but it's easy enough to change the nut action if you have a separate nut. But with the 0 fret, I can't raise the nut action without pulling that fret and putting in a taller fret. So it makes it much more difficult of an operation. Then once I put in that higher fret, if I wanted to raise the nut action, let's say, and in this case it would be raising the 0 fret action, I put in a taller fret, but how much taller is it than the other fret? Well, okay, you put it in taller, and then I have to file it with a sanding block, and it takes actually more care, and it's easier to screw up than it is cutting each individual nut slot for the player's individual needs. So that's something to be said about a 0 fret and the nuts. Okay. Last thing I'm going to show you. This is hopefully this will be interesting for you. This is a micrometer, and it's a dual micrometer. It has a black and it has a red needle. The red dial goes with the red needle, and that's millimeters. And you see 1 there. I don't know if you can see the decimal point. There you go. Decimal 1, decimal 2. So when I bring that red needle down to here, that's 1 millimeter. And 1 millimeter should be about 39 thousandths of an inch. 39, and let's see if I can get it right on. There we go. Yeah, about 39 thousandths of an inch is a millimeter. And it's like 39 point whatever thousandths of an inch makes 1 millimeter. So I work with both thousandths of an inches and millimeters. Millimeters I'm more familiar with, but strings are measured in thousandths of a millimeter. So of course you can use it to measure that, and I measure here, and it comes right up onto the, it was on the 12, I measured it earlier as well. Okay, so there's 12 thousandths of an inch, so these strings are 12s. The low string, 12 to a 51 it looks like. Okay, it was 1251, the black needle. And I'm going to switch to millimeters now. For the frets, these frets are very, very flat on top. Someone has done fretwork before, they've leveled them off, they didn't recrown them well, the tops are very flat, I can see the sides of the frets are not well recrowned. And this also has a depth gauge to it, okay? So you can measure both the width of something, you can measure the space between something, right? So there's the space between my fingertip and my thumb tip. There's the width of my thumb tip. So there's 2 measurements that we can get. The third measurement we can get is a depth measurement, right? So what I'm going to use here is I'm going to put that onto the fingerboard right beside the fret. I'm going to drop it down, and looking at the red, I get 0.6 of a millimeter. I do this a couple times. Last time I did it, I got 0.54-ish. There we go. Yeah. 0.545 or 0.55. Yeah, 0.55 of a millimeter. Once we get the frets that low, below 0.7 of a millimeter, I tell clients, unless you really like low frets, it's time to think about replacing the frets. So this guitar is going to have its strings lifted or removed, and then I'm going to pull the frets out of here, give it some new frets. We're going to obviously put in a new 0 fret. I need to be careful about that because I want to make sure that the 0 fret is at least slightly higher than the rest of the frets, and then I'm going to make a new nut for it. So next time you see a video on this instrument, it will probably be partway through. I'll make another video to show you the in progress, and we'll see how this guitar turns out with some new frets. There you go. Press like on the video. It helps share the video with other people. You guys know how YouTube works with algorithms, and it will help return the video to, or these videos to your own YouTube feed if you find anything informational or instructional in them. Put a comment down there. One fella commented during my last video, I appreciated it. He said, try landscape mode instead of portrait mode. I used portrait because I could get the full guitar in there. I thought it was easier, but if a lot of people like landscape mode, then that's fine. I'll do that. And if you have any questions or any other types of videos you'd like to see on guitar maintenance, any questions, just ask them away, and I will, at the very least, I'll answer your question in the comments, and I might even make a video on it if it's something that's that seems like something we can share with some other people. There you go. Hope you guys have a great and a blessed day, and I'll see you in the next video, I hope. Bye for now.